All right, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome back to the Bokeh Podcast. I am your host, Nathan Holritz, CEO over at Photographers Edit and Milu, and your host for today's activities, which happen to involve a really wonderful boudoir photographer. I got a chance to chat with her for a few minutes before we started. I'm going to introduce her here in just a second. Couple of things first. If you are watching live or listening live, please don't hesitate to engage today. Ask questions, make comments, send us funny emojis if you want to, but we want this to be a group discussion. That's one of the benefits of this live stream, is being able to ask questions and engage with our guests and with myself too. So please don't hesitate to do that. If you're listening to the audio version of this after the fact, we do live stream all of our Bokeh Podcast episodes now, usually a couple a week. But you can find out when the next one is if you just follow us on Instagram at Bokeh Podcast, B-O-K-E-H Podcast. One other note here before I introduce my guest, I just want to encourage everybody to continue to look for ways to give back. As I've promised, I've donated to charitywater.org here today before our podcast episode. I will continue to do that every podcast episode. And it's just a little bit of money, but it's amazing how a little bit can go a long way. $40 means clean drinking water for somebody who doesn't have that consistently. And so I would encourage you all to look for similar opportunities, whether it's in your local community or elsewhere, to be able to give back in some way. All right, enough of me talking now. I want to introduce our new guest, brand new guest actually for today. Magdalena Iskra is here with me. Magdalena, thank you for spending time with me today. I really appreciate this.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Well, we had some really lovely conversation before we got started. In fact, we were having conversation about conversation, and we were talking about how a good conversationalist can take one word or one idea and just run with that, create interesting conversation from that.
Yes.
You said this is something that you're really good at in your native language, Polish, and you learned this from your mother. Tell us a little bit more about that.
It's actually very helpful if you can talk, and you can talk from very easy topic and exchange then and spread about any other topics. And I think it's great. I'm good at it.
Well, and the analogy that you said you could start with a topic or a conversation about fish and end with an elephant. Like it could go all kinds of different directions. But what I brought up at that point was the importance of conversation, or we were talking about the importance of conversation as it relates to running a photography business. A lot of photographers in our industry say that they're introverts. They tend to be a little bit shy, not quite as comfortable with conversation with people that they don't know. And so I wonder if you were to make one suggestion from your experience as a conversationalist, what one tip or idea would you suggest to photographers who feel a little bit shy in conversation?
I think just practice and years in photography of any field of businesses. You have to feel more comfortable and to talk, because communication is actually the key. You cannot book a client if you're weirdo with conversation, right? If you invite someone to your studio for booking, for conversation, just create the space and create a conversation just to feel them more comfortable. And I think conversation is the key, and especially in photography, boudoir, wedding, or any other field of photography or any other business. Just try to be more relaxed, like I am not right now because I am stressed out. But try to find yourself and just be more talker, more natural.
Well, you're handling yourself beautifully, so you're setting a good
example. Yes, I'm
example.
trying. And like you see, I am just using my body to just talk. When you just hold my hands, I can talk.
Okay.
It's simple.
That's a good tip. You actually, so first of all, you mentioned boudoir photography. We're going to be talking about your boudoir business here today. You also mentioned space, having clients come into your space. And when I went to full screen here just a second ago, which I'm going to do now, we can see your studio in the background. And it's just beautiful. There's so much character. I almost feel like I'm maybe in the 1930s with some of the decoration that you have there. Talk a little bit about that.
I love my space. I love my studio. And Actually, every single client just came into the studio and said the same. Oh, I love this space. I love this surrounding and the neighborhood. I am so lucky to have the studio. And actually, I love the style, the huge clock, a lot of books about photography, a little cameras. I can show you. Can you move the camera?
Oh, we're
You just
losing you.
see
Just
more
oh yeah,
and
nice.
more. I
Yeah.
love this. Yeah.
Well, that's
And I
wonderful.
love this space. And
I'm sorry. I think there's a little bit of a delay in our connection, so I don't mean to interrupt you
okay,
at all. But the space is absolutely beautiful, and thanks for kind of
thank
giving
you.
us additional perspective as well. But I just couldn't help but notice it, and we're going to be talking a little bit about how that very simple yet beautiful background plays into the type of work that you create as a boudoir photographer here in just a little bit. But I first want to introduce our listeners to your brand. I'm going to actually share my screen here and browser more specifically, Pure Boudoir, Pure
Yes.
boudoir.com. And then the same thing on Instagram, Pure Boudoir. And I want to encourage all of our listeners to make sure that you follow. And you know what? It's so funny I say this, Magdalena. Somehow I'm not actually following your brand. Oh, this is. I have so many different Instagram accounts. I'm following you on my personal account. I've now followed you from our podcast account as well. So, but
Thank
Pure,
you.
absolutely, my privilege. Pure Boudoir on
Yes.
Instagram, just like it sounds, and then pureboudoir.com. And I want to use this as an opportunity to ask you about your brand position. What makes you unique as a boudoir photographer in your marketplace?
You know, I am a natural light photographer and I am trying to create and classy and timeless images. That's my signature style. That's my signature recognizable for my client. And I always ask my client why actually you choose me. And I get the same answer because you are sticking out, because you are different. You are not cheesy, you are more artsy, moody, and I guess I'm not cheesy and moody. That's my style. That's why I'm sticking out from here in Chicago area.
Well, but I would have to agree, and this is actually the main reason or one of the main reasons I'm having you on the show today is your style just really stands out. There is such a classic and classy
Yes.
nature to it, and in
Yes.
fact, I'm here on the homepage of your site, and just above the fold it says "Stay classy, stay sassy." We're going to
Yes.
actually talk today in just a few minutes about how you combine those two things, right? Because you mentioned the
Yes.
word cheesy. I think a lot of boudoir photography these days, some of it's cheesy, some of it's become kind of cliche, a little bit predictable. Sometimes I feel like maybe over-sexualized in some way. There's so many different things that we're seeing that are kind of trends, but your imagery looks, not only is it beautiful now, but I think it would look good in 20 years. It's beautiful, beautiful work. We're going to talk in more detail in just a
Okay.
little bit about how you make that happen. But I want to ask you another question. We've talked a little bit about your clients coming into your space and the environment that you're creating for them, the conversation that you have with them. Is that at the root of the client experience that you're creating, or is there another big idea that drives that positive client experience with your brand?
You know, the best customer service. It's not only answer the emails, phone calls. I think providing the great atmosphere, like you see in the studio. I just invite them here, makes them feel comfortable with me, with themselves, and that's the ideal atmosphere for boudoir session and for clients' experience. And I work with many different clients. Sometimes I have to answer 4 times the same questions through emails. But the key is just be calm, be patient, and create the right atmosphere through emails, phone calls, or just here in the person. I think that's the key and works for me very well.
Well, and Patrick Aaron commented on Facebook. He says that studio is awesome indeed, very unique and so different. And thanks for
Thank you,
commenting,
Patrick.
Patrick. Yeah, and for everybody else who's listening or watching, please don't hesitate to comment or ask questions. Really appreciate the feedback, Patrick. The space that you've created is beautiful. So I can imagine somebody walks in, they're naturally
Yeah.
just kind of in awe, kind of taken by the space, and that's wonderful. Your persona is lovely. I mean, your energy is wonderful. And I'm sure that also makes a big difference. Do you, I know some photographers in a studio setting will play music in the background.
Of course.
Is that something you do?
Yes, I
Okay.
learned many things from my experience for many years to shooting, from attending to workshops. They give me like little bigger tips how to provide the business, how to create the atmosphere. And it's also in me. And there's also always a music. There's always something to eat. There's always something to drink. There is a little booze. There is like a nice smell. Smell is actually very important.
Can I ask what type of aroma do you buy, like a spray or a candles or what?
All of them.
Okay.
There is a spray, there is a candles, there is like some smell sticking in the plugs, in the walls.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah.
I love this. I want to come.
Me. I
and
am
you.
smell.
You create
And
the
me.
experience. Should we ask what kind of perfume you wear as well?
Of course, Chanel.
Of course. Classic, and that totally plays in your
classy.
brand. Yeah.
Classy.
Well, let's switch gears just a little bit. Time management. I mean, as a photography business owner, by the way, you mentioned to me before we started that you've stayed busy despite COVID as well. So you have a lot on your plate, but I'm curious if there's a big idea that's driven your ability to create some type of balance in your life between running a business, but then also having a personal life. Is there an idea or a concept that you would want to share with our listeners in that regard?
For right now, the happy hour is actually nap time for me.
Okay.
But it's not easy to run a business and be mom of two kids, and the smaller one is just 2 months, and it's not
Wow.
easy. But before she was born, I get up early morning before everyone gets up, go to the gym. I love boxing, by the way.
Do you really?
I do. I do.
How long have you been doing that?
Like almost 2 years.
Wow.
Yeah, but I love to work out. I love gym. I think this is really nice energy, nice power for rest of the day, and
Yes.
that's my actually self-care medication to recharge my battery, to boost my energy for often, like almost every morning. But light breakfast, coffee, magazines. I am outgoing person. I love nature. I love camping. I love traveling. That's everything just boosts me for inspiration. We can see inspiration for photography everywhere.
Yes.
And yeah.
Agreed.
I am still looking for a self-care routine for today, but I'm going there.
But I think, I mean, sometimes this conversation about self-care, it's super important. I'm certainly very intentional in working out. My gym has a massage chair that I like to sit in to help relax my muscles because I tend to be a little bit uptight. Certainly trying to do a better job with sleep, trying to get outside and get sun is super important.
And actually, healthy diet helps a lot.
A lot. That's really 90% of it, right?
Yes.
So I think to that point, as much as we are talking about the significance of self-care in our culture right now, a lot of it is it's back down to basics. Getting up and spending a little bit of time at the gym, eating healthy, getting enough rest, getting out in nature and moving outdoors. These are not complicated concepts. And if we just show up and do them consistently, my regular workout is, I would say maybe 45 minutes or so in length. It doesn't take that long. And if I do that consistently, I can stay in wonderful shape. And I think the same applies kind of across the board when it comes to this concept of self-care. It's not about doing anything crazy or over the top. It's just about doing it consistently, and we're much better off for it. So I love that. Boxing. I've never really boxed before. I mean, is this something that...
I was thinking about boxing for many years.
Okay.
And I never find the gut actually to go and try, because boxing thinks this is only for guys. But I like working out, and I tried many things. But I was always just deep in my heart and head, it was boxing. And actually I tried and I love it. I love it.
That's great. Oh, I can see the energy come through in your eyes and your face when you start
Mm-hmm.
talking about it. You get excited about it. That's good. That's good. It's nice to have those outlets, for sure. It's
Yes.
important. And again, back to the idea of self-care, that just having an outlet, doing something we enjoy for a little bit can make a big, big difference. Okay.
Of
I want
course.
to keep moving though. Talk to me a little bit. When we talk about time management, of course, one of the most important components of that as well is delegation. And I'm curious if this is something you've experimented with in your business in any form, email management, administrative tasks, editing, album design, any part of that. Have you done that with your business?
Of course, I am doing that on myself. I, yeah.
Okay.
Just friend of mine, she's helping me out with blogging. My husband is helping me out with some messages, emails.
Wonderful.
If I have much, he's picking me up. But editing, shooting, starting with conversations, with consultations, it's me. I think, for my client, big deal is actually privacy, and I don't want to outsource images to anyone.
Sure.
I would like to just edit them themselves, because most of my sessions, they're very private, and it stays with me, stays at my home.
Well, but I love that you're working with your husband, working with a friend of yours to be able to help manage some of those tasks. Even doing a little bit of that frees you up to focus
Yes.
on delivering those images to
Of
the
course.
client, which is wonderful. I
It's
think,
helpful.
yeah, and let me actually ask you about this too, because this is an interesting when we're talking about delegating to not just an individual, but delegating to a partner, a romantic partner, your husband, right? There's this interesting element of communication that comes in, which is you have to communicate what it is that you would like him to do. And of course, there's also the personal relationship in that too. Is there something that's enabled you to more effectively communicate what you're looking for to your husband when you're saying, hey, handle these messages for me. This is how I would like you to communicate.
We are actually very great with communication. All overall, we are also shooting wedding together for almost 11 years. That's other business, and we also rebrand our wedding name for Pure. There is a Pure Wedding Day. This is the thing. Combine us together like a partners and business partners. Of course, Boudoir is actually more than me, but he's helping me out because we providing our family, and that's my business, and he loves to help me, and the communication is great. With these things, I am not mentioning the other things.
Hey, that's life though, right?
Yes.
Communication is an ongoing learning process.
Yes.
That's for sure. Yeah.
Yes.
Well, last question before we get into kind of our main topic today. Something that I like to ask is about a favorite book. This could be a favorite business book or a self-help book, something you would recommend to our listeners that's made a big impact in your life.
Actually, I was thinking there is no one important or two important books for me, for my inspiration, for my business and work. But I attended to workshops. They actually gave me a lot of inspiration. I had workshops with the best photographers in the fields, and they show me, or they just improve my business with not only with shooting, but also how running the business with editing. And that's my biggest inspiration. Like I said, I work better with people when I see in the practice, in the field, when I see shooting, when I see how others shoot, when I can find the perspective, I can try on my own practice. It's just priceless for me, and I learn so quickly.
Would you mind mentioning one or two of those workshops? Is there one that really stands out in your mind that you just found so much value from?
Yeah, actually, I attend like 3 or 4 times at WPPI in Las Vegas every year. There is like a workshop for the whole world. The whole world photographers, they can come and attend to these workshops, and the best class from Boudoir, actually, because I took many classes with any other topics, but Boudoir class, it was with Felon, and he introduced me more for darker and moody style, like I am right now, and and that was amazing for me. And any others, I also love style and working and taking classes with Rocco Ancora. He's amazing wedding photographer, and his person is just funny and easy to talk and work.
Okay.
Yep.
So for our listeners' sake in mind, because I'm going to take notes here too. The first one you mentioned, tell me their name again.
Phelan Thomas. I think it's a Phelan, Phelnan.
Okay. And then the second one more time, you said was which one?
Rocco Ancora.
Rocco Ancora. Oh, Rocco Ancora. Yes.
Yes. He's from Australia.
Okay. Perfect. And by the way, for everybody listening and watching, we're going to put these in the show notes as well at bokehpodcast.com. So if you're curious, you can follow up on these resources and all of the other talking points from today's conversation too. I really appreciate you sharing that, Magdalena.
Sure.
Let's go ahead and move back to your brand again, because this gets me excited. And truly, not only is your work beautiful in and of itself, but it does have a very classic nature to it. And yet you're also trying to add a little bit of attitude, a little bit of sassiness to it. And so we're going to dig into how you do that. But let's start with the name first. You mentioned earlier the brand Pure Boudoir. It sums up your brand beautifully, I think. How did you come up with that name? What's behind that name?
Coming up with the name for any business is actually never easy. Has to be catchy, has to be short, has to be easy to pronounce. And Pure for me, it's actually simplicity and authentic. And like my style, I'm assuring ladies in a simply way of elegant and classy means for me pure. And before I came out with the idea, before I found the name, I was trying to find the right name for me. But one day I was just browsing the Google domain, what is actually available, and when I see the Pure Boudoir, it was like in a second I was like, this is it, this is name for me. I think it's just reflect my style, reflect myself, and authentic simplicity, that's my style, and I chose the name. By the way, my husband doesn't like the price of the name of domain. But after a few days of my attitude and trying to explain why I love this name, we got the name, and I'm so happy with my decision.
Yeah, sometimes I'm so glad you bring up domains, because I was thinking about that when you started talking about how you came up with the name. For me, I want my business names to have some type of meaning, but then I also want it to have a good domain name, right? Something that's short, it's easy to type in. And they can get really expensive sometimes.
Yes. Because the word boudoir is actually, it's not easy. It's not easy to pronounce, and it's not easy to spell. And if I add something also difficult and hard to spell, it's going to be disaster. That's why I think Pure, it's just reflecting me by nature, but also it's easy to remember, easy to spell, and it's just a little Google trick.
Yep. Beautifully done. Beautifully done. Now,
thank you.
I'm curious. You mentioned two ideas driving the pure nature of your brand. One was simplicity, and we're going to talk about that in a little bit. But then the other one is authenticity. And this is a word that's used so much in our industry these days. And I know it can mean different things to different people. What does that mean to you, authenticity, especially as it relates to your boudoir photography brand?
Simplicity for me means elegant and doesn't make a house with those images I would like to show. I photograph with natural light, then actually nicely show and unfold the human body. And I believe simplicity is actually better. I believe less is more.
Yes.
And I think that's the key with my style, with the lighting, with background, with the whole composition. And
so we're going to come to that here in just a little bit, but talk to me specifically about that word authentic, though. And it seems like it almost goes hand in hand with the word simple. If you're simple, you're taking away all the unnecessary,
Yes.
and focusing on what's there. Is that kind of what you mean by authentic, or what do you mean by
Yes.
authentic in that case?
What you mentioned, it's exactly the same. And actually, I would like to show an authentic form of my client. I never over process with the adding. I don't want to add any cheesy props, any cheesy outfits. Just show them beauty, authentic form of themselves, and
And
show more natural. Like you see, it's simple, and it's actually classy. Like less is more, an authentic form of human body. That's it.
I mean, I can only say it so many ways, but it's just beautifully captured. And you're
Yes.
exactly right. And here's one of the important things about brand position to begin with. Somebody can type some words on a page. For example, you might see, in fact, a lot of wedding photographers might say that they're a documentary photographer, for example. But then when about 50% of their images are posed images, it doesn't align with the brand. It doesn't match.
Yes.
You actually produce a portfolio of images that backs up your brand. You say you are simple and authentic, and the images back up that concept so beautifully. I think it's absolutely wonderful. And again, for everybody listening in and or watching, pureboudoir.com. I've popped that up on the screen if you're watching, or Pure Boudoir on Instagram. And of course, we'll link to these in the show notes at bokehpodcast.com. But Magdalena, your website says that you strive to create, and this is a quote, to create a place where intimacy, art, and photography all meet together to reveal the natural beauty and sensuality of female body. And I mean, again, this beautifully sums up your brand, but to keep it simple, we might just say classy, right? Or even classic. Did you always strive to create this classic look, or is this a style that developed over time?
From very beginning, I wanted to create images very classy and timeless. I want my client open the book, open the album in 5 or 10 years, and they will still love those images. I think very classy and timeless, very minimalistic. That's my style, and this is what I would like to create from very first session, very first beginning. And no tacky props or loud background. I wanted to show beauty and sensuality of female body without looking flashy and trashy. Just be classy, and those images can stay with us forever for like a gift, like for themselves.
Wow.
But yeah, this is something I would like to create from my first clicks in this studio with my first lady. I fall in love in boudoir, and I fall in love with human body, lady's body, and this is me from the beginning. And I
love
will
it.
be like that.
Yeah. Well, and you're so consistent too in the work that you're
Yes,
producing.
thank you.
And so what I did, just as I was preparing for our interview, I was looking through your work, and I was able to at least pick out two different kind of big ideas that seem to drive this classic nature of your work. One is this kind of soft directional light that I see a lot of in your work. And then the second is the minimalist or simple backgrounds. Let's start with the lighting portion of this. Talk to us, first of all, I mean, just from a technical perspective, what is your lighting setup for these shoots?
I am mostly working with natural light, and I'm looking always, and I'm working not only here in the studio, I also photograph in the field or hotels or any other places, but I'm always looking for the best light. And I work mostly with natural light, but the light is actually really, really powerful tool to can exchange and the body form for different directions, for different look. I can use the shadows to uncover some part of bodies, or cover if they don't like their belly
Interesting.
or yes, this is using the great light. You can unfold whatever you wish to unfold, and just cover imperfection and bring up elements you would like to just show. And I prefer working with just not loud background, because the background, I think, can create a house, and just simplicity. That's the key. Right light and simplicity, the right pose, the right shadows can create magic.
Okay, well, I want to come back. We're going to talk about your background in a little bit more detail in a second. But with this lighting, was this a style of lighting that, again, that you had in mind from the beginning, or were you inspired looking at some particular photographer's work? What made you want to go this direction? Not only natural light, but then also this very directional light.
You know, this is actually, I don't know how to explain, but this is actually in me. When I just grab a camera in my hand and I see the ladies, I know what to do. I know how to just transfer her body. We can just switch. I always say slow movements to my clients. You have to just fix your hair. You can just turn your head left, right, and we can work with the shadows. We can just see different things. Every single time you just move, and that's it.
So it just comes naturally for you.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, it is very obvious. I'm at a loss for words because I feel like I'm repeating myself over and over again. But it's so consistently classy, as we talked about, and classic by its nature. It is going to look good in 10, 20, 30 years. But I'm really stuck on what you said just a few minutes ago, which is that you're using light. You know, a lot of photographers say I'm a natural light photographer, and it's almost code for I just don't like to bother with lights, right? So they use quote unquote natural light, and that's fine. Nothing wrong with that, especially if it's done well. But in your case, you're using it very intentionally as well. You talked about using shadows to either hide or show off particular elements of the body. Again, was that a technique that you just naturally found yourself, or is that something that you learned elsewhere?
Yes, I just find it myself, to be honest. But you know, it's helpful because we ladies, we always, there is something we don't like in ourselves. I don't like my arms. Some ladies, they don't like their bellies. And I know I can use the skill and the right position, the right perspective, the right shadows, the right light to just unfold the right form like they would like to see. It is actually priceless when you show on your camera screen the image to the ladies, and sometimes you can see the tears in their eyes. I did. Is it me? Is it really me? I didn't see myself this way. And yep, like I said, I combined all these things like light, shadows, pose, perspective, can create magic. And I am creating the magic with the ladies.
You are. You absolutely are. Okay, so I want to talk. You talked about the background just a little bit. These and again, I'm just kind of scrolling here through your Instagram account and looking at the backgrounds. The majority of these images are either kind of non-existent because of the way that you're using light, or if there is some type of a prop in the image, it's a singular prop, if you will. I mean, there's a couch or a chair of some kind to sit on. Maybe a bed to lie in, but it's very, very, very simple. Now, before we talk a little bit more detail about how you go about this process, are you naturally a minimalist by nature? Do you like, you talk about less is more. Do you see that in your personal life as well?
I am. Yes, I would say so. I am minimalistic by the nature. And like I said, less is more. Simplicity is the key. I can use props, but the props, they're not loud, they're not making a house. I am focusing more on subject, not the props, not the background. And I think this define more of my subject. And
that's interesting.
I am also shooting with f1.2 to f1.6. That's blur the surrounding and background. That's also help to just define the subject.
This may seem obvious to some, but the way that you describe a minimal number of props in the scene, a simple background for the sake of highlighting the subject, I really love that. You know, a lot of shoots, boudoir shoots, you do see these very ornate backgrounds and props or a combination of the above. And you're right, it could be quite distracting to what is
Yes.
really the most important thing, which is the subject in the image. So do I understand correctly that your primary goal then is to make sure that the subject is the primary focus
Yes.
and the background doesn't distract from that?
Yes, of course. I think, like I said, can create too much, could be too much. They can create house, and this is not simplicity. And we would like to show a body. We would like to show beautifully the body, to just unfold and showing a lady, a lady. I don't want to show beautiful couch because that's not important. I don't want to show beautiful headboards
Sure.
or necklaces.
Yeah.
Yeah, sometimes my ladies, they bring some props. Like once my client brought champagne and she was like, "Oh, I like champagne. I would like to do something." And then I was like, sometimes I don't like those cheesy things, but that makes me think and what to do to show this kind of prop in the way I would like to show. And we did magic with the champagne.
I have the image pulled up
Yes,
here. Is that right?
yes, this is kind of this one, and I have also another one, and
Yeah.
yes, it's I think sexy.
Yeah.
I think it's not too much,
Sure.
but showing some sensuality, and it's not too cheesy.
Not cheesy at all. You're right. Yeah, and some of those boudoir images that you see out there are quite cheesy. I love the balance though, and again, I love the intentionality as well. And you're certainly. I mean, these are they naturally can be or are sexy images, but there's not such a strong emphasis on the sexuality, which at times can be. I don't know. In some ways, it almost seems inappropriate at times, or just cheesy, just plain cheesy, as you were talking about. You have such a nice balance with your images, and so I have to give you props for that.
Thank you. Thank you.
And to that end, I have one more question for you, and I want to jump back to your website. Actually, here on the homepage of your website, and for anybody listening in or watching, it's pureboudoir.com. Simple as that. But this phrase right above the fold, it says "Stay classy, stay sassy." Talk to me just a little bit about what you mean by the combination of these two concepts. They almost seem contradictory in some ways. You managed to combine the two of them. I mean, exemplified perfectly, in fact, by that picture I just pulled up. But what's the thought process in combining these two principles, and how do you do it?
I think classy means tasteful, elegant, and sassy means bold and confident. And those all things combined together create sensuality and creates my style. I like to create bold and confident lady with elegant and tasteful images, and be classy, be sassy, combined together. I think that's me, that's my style in boudoir. And yeah, just stay sassy, stay classy.
You sum it up beautifully, and I love the very straightforward style of communication too. I mean, you've shared wonderful practical advice with us today, and I really appreciate you making time to do this, to share your beautiful studio space as well. I'm going to, of course, put your website up here on the screen for anybody who's watching, pureboudoir.com. Your Instagram is pureboudoir as well. And are those the best two places for all of our listeners to go and follow you?
Yes, please check out my website, Pure Boudoir, Facebook page, Instagram. It's the same name, Pure Boudoir.
Perfect. We'll put all of these in the show notes, bokehpodcast.com, for everybody listening and watching. Make sure you go take advantage of those show notes. Make sure you follow Magdalena, and we'll link to her accounts there online. Thanks again, Magdalena. I really appreciate your time.
Thank you for having me. Thank you so much.